I'm glad that at Harrison Dining Hall, they had French onion soup again. Left over from lunch. It turned out that my training appointment with the RD had to be rescheduled. He said if Thursday would work out for me, and I said it would, as long as the Zoom meeting could be arranged over Zoom. The training appointment could be arranged over Zoom. As for my classes, thankfully I woke up, despite staying up pretty late, trying to get the hard badge for completing all 14 maps of Incursion 2, the Artifact, during which I made an attempt at beating the last level after acquiring 5 uses of the steam machine gun, 3 poison potions, and 3 potion of sleeping. Though despite all that stuff, and what I felt would be a pretty good placement of troops, in the end, the final boss got down to about 970 health out of 6,000, but it wasn't enough to ultimately defeat the boss in time. It got down to about 1 life left due to all of the escaping skeleton minions and whatnot. But thankfully, I was able to reset the game by refreshing the page. And when the game booted back up with the save, it was as if I had never played that level. So I thankfully preserved all of my stuff. The snow coverage is starting to decrease. Down to pockets of isolated ice, basically. Colored white with snow, but also having spots that are gray and brown due to pollution from various sources. Today was the day I cracked into some of those mini cherry pies Dad got for me. They were pretty good, but they were quite sweet. And despite that, though, they were good, but with about 460 calories per pie. They're not the healthiest thing, and I ended up having 3. Throughout the late night period. As for in our African politics class, we talked about the process of democratization in Africa, which is basically a talk of how Africa, countries on the continent, many of them became democracies. However, just because they become democracies does not necessarily mean they become free. What's required for a free democracy are open and transparent elections. And while some African countries do certainly have that, there are also ones who do not. This is the last thing I need to ultimately get grand prize. Much of the democratization came when the Soviet Union collapsed. When that event happened, the Soviet Union could no longer support the communist African countries. And that played a significant part in how they became democracies. This is where I'm at currently. Thankfully, I did end up having a concern I would get a quest requiring me to activate 2 technologies. But thankfully, that didn't happen, so I can just push through the rest of the Dwarves chapter and transition onto the Fairies chapter. I took part in the newest, I think, Crystal tournament, I think, in order to at last be able to complete the last task set and ultimately get the Goddess of Wishes, building. The thing is, though, that has an expiration date of a month. That may seem a while, but I once thought 100 days would be more than enough time for me to be able to continuously replace this carding library. For a Spanish class, we did some exercises on the subjunctive tense in Spanish. You use it in cases where there's doubt, but not in cases where there is no doubt, because for no doubt you use the indicative tense. And I think that's derived from the name. The indicative tense is used to indicate things. And you can only indicate things that are certain. At least that's my interpretation of the difference between the indicative tense and the subjunctive tense. I got my Intermediate Spanish 2 notebook so that I could ultimately show the exercises we did off of the loose leaf textbook. Loose leaf means that the pages aren't confined to a spine. So you kind of have to create a spine by putting the pages into a binder. There's currently no plastic glasses for the milk at Harrison Dining Hall, or at least there's no need for them because they still haven't ordered them. Today in art class, I made some pretty good progress on my trick clay shoe. The professor showed me the ropes and helped me to learn about what to do. So I think I'm now more willing to give it a shot in the open ceramic studio hours tomorrow on Wednesday. I arranged for my weekly COVID pool test to be at 4 p.m. today, and it was at the Cirque. I stayed at the ceramic studio to work on my shoe until about 3:30 or so. Then I spent about roughly a quarter of an hour cleaning up putting away the supplies needed for the project, putting it into a locker, and then the COVID pool test took just minutes for me to ultimately do, but despite the relaxation set by listening to a YouTube video of the music from the Congregate game Take a Walk, I knew that I didn't have that much time to make it to the Cirque from the tower department, which is generally the building where they hold the art classes. And that ultimately brings me up to 5 p.m. when I went out to sit in the lobby of Eagle Hall, spending roughly 20 or so minutes waiting for the RD to show up for an appointment I had not yet known was canceled. And it was while I was using my phone to sort of pass the time to wait that I found an email telling me about a good opportunity now that I'm nearing my graduation in terms of an application. and whatnot. And then it was later when an Eagle Hall staff told me to, gave me the idea of emailing the RD. That I then found the email from the RD telling me that the training appointment had been rescheduled. Due to a bit of a family emergency. And that's why I sent the reply that Thursday would be good for me if a training appointment could be done over Zoom, which I think it can. Because I think by Thursday I'll be at Dad's apartment unit again. I've got a bit of a blister on the bottom of one of my feet. I wouldn't really know why, though. I put on socks with winter boots. Winter boots because there could still be some ice out, and you need good traction if you don't want to slip on the ice. Though oddly enough, when I went for my COVID pool test, at some point, I think the part right before you get the barcode to the test to enter into your profile, I saw the librarian Wendy I had remembered from back in the days in which I would, the whole of each day, in the Drake Memorial Library. And I was able to recognize her, and she was the only one who had seemed to have the slightest difficulty in recognizing me, despite the mask, sunglasses, and winter hat I wear these days when going outside. Although that probably won't be for too much longer, as it's currently early March. She asked if it was me, Tyler, and I said it was.